Hello everyone, and welcome back to Game Easy, Roll Good. Today we are beginning our series on the spellcasting subclass changes for the Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons in 2024. This is the final week in this series about all the different class and subclass changes. So if you've missed the spellcasting base class changes, that's in a playlist from last week. And then the playlists for the martial base class changes and the martial subclass changes are also in a playlist on my channel. You can go check them out there. But today we're going to start with the Bard, and before I get started with that, if you're new to this channel or if you keep coming back to this channel and haven't subscribed yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps me out quite a bit. Today we're talking about the Bard. Y'all don't want to hear me, you just want to dance. So let's take a look at what the Bard is working with for subclasses in the 2024 Player's Handbook. So looking at the subclass preview, we have the College of Dance. This is a brand new subclass for the Bard. We'll take a look at what that means. They also have the College of Glamour, which is always kind of one of my favorite ones thematically, so we'll see what kind of changes they made to that one. The College of Lore is a classic, as well as the College of Valor. So the College of Valor, at least in pre-2024, was kind of always overshadowed once the College of Swords was released. This College of Swords was basically just a better version of the Valor Bard, but we'll look at see what they did to make that a more modern subclass in 2024. I'm not going to go ahead and read through all these descriptions. I'm just putting them here because one of the design philosophies of the game designers, as they stated during the play test, was that they wanted the base classes to feel more like that class, and then the subclasses accordingly should also feel more like that subclass, have more of a definition there. So we can just kind of see if it matches up to the descriptions that we have. Starting off with the College of Dance Bard. So this is a brand new Bard subclass. So we're not comparing it to anything previously. So we have a brand new feature here at level 3 called Dazzling Footwork. It says, while you aren't wearing an armor or wielding a shield, you gain the following benefits. You have Dance Virtuoso. You have advantage on any charisma performance check you make that involves you dancing. You have Unarmored Defense. Your base armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity and charisma modifiers. Agile Strikes. When you expend a use of your Bardic Inspiration as part of an action, bonus action, or a reaction, you can make one unarmed strike as part of that action, bonus action, or reaction. And then you also have Bardic Damage. You can use Dexterity instead of Strength for the attack rolls of your unarmed strikes. When you deal damage with an unarmed strike, you can deal bludgeoning damage equal to a roll of your Bardic Inspiration die plus your Dexterity modifier instead of the strike's normal damage, and this roll doesn't expend that die. So I think this is kind of pretty interesting. People were like thinking that this was kind of stepping on the monk's toes. I don't think that's quite how this subclass will play out, but it does say down here for my notes, being good at unarmed strikes with this subclass does require you to have decent dexterity, but agile strikes wants you to use your Bardic Inspiration, which is based on your charisma. So you won't be able to be good at both necessarily until endgame, and even then you're going to be very squishy. So it's like this is a subclass that wants to be up in melee range, and you have probably the best version of unarmored defense because you should have decent dexterity and decent charisma as a bard. But still, you still have only the D8 hit die, and because this basically turns you into a multi-attribute dependent class, we call a mad class, because you have to both have good dex for your attack rolls with your unarmed strikes, as well as good charisma for all the things that you want to do as a bard. And you can't take the hexblade dip and have used charisma on your unarmed strikes. That's not unfortunately possible. You're kind of in this weird situation where you're kind of the jack of all trades like the bard is supposed to be. So interesting start to the class here. I do kind of like the idea of it, but I'm really curious about how it'll actually play in game. Moving on to the level 6 feature, we have Inspiring Movement. It says, when an enemy you can see ends its turn within 5 feet of you, you can take a reaction and expend one use of your Bardic Inspiration. Again, from the previous feature, this does allow you to make that unarmed attack because you're spending use of a Bardic Inspiration as a reaction, so you can make an unarmed strike as you do this. So you can take a reaction and expend one use of your Bardic Inspiration and move up to half your speed. Then one ally of your choice within 30 feet can also move up to half their speed using their reaction. None of this feature's movement provokes opportunity attack, so that's pretty cool too. So if an enemy comes up to you and they do whatever they're going to do on their turn and then they end their turn next to you, you can take a reaction, you can then punch them expending your Bardic Inspiration die to do so. You move up to half your speed away without provoking opportunity attacks, and then maybe like a martial ally, a big bruiser, you can have them run up into their space as well. So this is sort of a very similar to like the Scout Rogue's Skirmisher feature combined with sort of the bait and switch of the Battle Master. and then again, you can try to unarmed strike them on your way out. So this is pretty good for getting yourself away from danger. Although it is when the enemy ends their turn next to you, so they get to do everything that they want to do, on their turn. It's still good to be able to get away without provoking opportunity attacks. Also at the level 6 feature, we have Tandem Footwork. It says when you roll initiative, you can expend 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration if you don't have the incapacitated condition. When you do so, roll your Bardic Inspiration die. You and each ally within 30 feet of you who can see or hear you gains a bonus to initiative equal to the number rolled. This is probably my favorite feature from this subclass because I don't think we've had anything quite this powerful before. It's kind of busted because there will be times where this allows your entire party to act first before the enemy gets to go, which can dramatically warp the tempo of combat if they're having to be more reactive and having to do things in response to what you're doing. If I were playing this class, I would probably be banking at least 1 Bardic Inspiration to make sure I could use this at the start of any combat. And then on to the level 14 feature, the capstone for this subclass, we have Leading Evasion. It says when you are subjected to an effect that allows you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed the saving throw and only half damage if you fail. If any creatures within 5 feet of you are making the same dexterity saving throw, you can share this benefit with them for that save. And you can't use this if you're incapacitated. So this is potentially pretty powerful, although it is only a 5-foot radius. Although in situations where you might be facing a very difficult dexterity save, such as against certain dragons, hugging the bard might be a pretty powerful effect. It kind of puts more people in that cone of the breath or whatever it's going to be, or it's going to, one thing to note here is that if you do have like a spell like Enlarge Reduce, or able to get bigger, that 5-foot radius is actually includes more squares, so you can include more people around you, or just more space to work with essentially, so that's something to work with as well. Moving on to the next subclass, we have the Glamour Bard. So this is, again, a changed subclass in the 2024 Player's Handbook. It has changed quite a bit, I believe, from pre-2024 rules. So we start with level 3 at Beguiling Magic. In 2024, this is basically a brand new level 3 feature. It says you always have Charm Person and Mirror Image spells prepared. In addition, immediately after you cast an enchantment or illusion spell using a spell slot, you can cause a creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself to make a Wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. On a failed save, the target has the Charmed or Frightened condition, your choice, for 1 minute. The target repeats the save at the end of each of its turns and ending the effect on itself on a success. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, or you can restore use using your Bardic Inspiration, no action required. I really liked the Enthralling Performance feature in 2014 just because I thought it was very thematically cool, although it's very difficult to use in practice. This Charm Frightened is limited in use, but it is kind of forking your spells. When you cast, there's a lot of good enchantment spells. that is immediately after you cast an enchantment illusion, it's not even during your turn. So if you have Silvery Barbs, for example, you can, as a reaction, Silvery Barbs, which is an enchantment spell, and then throw out this this Charm or Frightened condition on another creature. So I think this is going to be pretty good. It'll be, it's going to be very situational, but throwing out a Frighten can be very powerful against a lot of enemies because it means that they can't approach you. So that's very strategically powerful. Specifically, they are charmed against you specifically, so they can't attack you as well if you charmed them. Moving on to the other level 3 feature for the Glamour Bard, we have Mantle of Inspiration. It says, as a bonus action, you can expend the use of Bardic Inspiration. Rolling a Bardic Inspiration die, when you do so, choose a number of other creatures within 60 feet of yourself up to a number equal to your Charisma modifier, minimum of 1. Each of those creatures gains a number of temporary hit points equal to 2 times the number rolled on the Bardic Inspiration die. And then each creature can use its reaction to move up to its speed without provoking opportunity attacks. The amount of temporary hit points is on average about the same, but it can also be way less than the pre-2024 version. Because in 2014, it says each of them gains 5 temporary hit points, but then this scaled at other levels. So it was up to 8 at 5th level, 11 at 10th level, and 14 at 5th level. So while it technically can be more, it's really going to depend on what your Bardic Inspiration die is rolled. So if you roll low, this is just so much worse. And there's nothing you can really do. You can technically use the new Heroic Inspiration on it to re-roll that die, but there's nothing protecting you from just rolling bad, essentially. So I kind of like the older feature better just because it's more reliable, I think. Moving on to level 6, we have Mantle of Majesty. In 2024, this says you always have the command spell prepared. As a bonus action, you cast the command spell without expending a spell slot, and you take on an unearthly appearance for 1 minute or until concentration ends. During this time, you can cast command as a bonus action without expending a spell slot. Any creature charmed by you automatically fails its saving throw against the command you cast with this feature. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. You can also restore your use of it by expending a level 3 or higher spell slot, no action required. More permanent least prepared spells is never bad. Command is actually a pretty good one. The synergizes pretty well with the Beguiling Magic feature, although it doesn't work with the casting of this command spell because it doesn't consume a spell slot. Even when you sacrifice a level 3 spell slot to restore your use of it, it specifically says you cast command without expending a spell slot, so you're only ever casting the level 1 version of it. But if you do have a creature that is charmed by you by either another spell or by your Beguiling Magic feature at level 3, then you can just force them to fail that saving throw. So that's actually very, very powerful. So if you have because command, the effective purpose of command is to basically quote unquote time walk your enemy, basically to force them to skip their turn, allowing you to basically take an extra turn instead of them. If you're able to land that when you have that lined up, that's actually going to feel very, very good. Like it's going to warp combats in that way. Moving on to level 14, the capstone for the College of Glamour, we have Mantle of Majesty. It's in 2024. It says, as a bonus action, you can assume a magically majestic presence for 1 minute or until you have the incapacitated condition. For the duration, whenever any creature hits you with an attack roll for the first time on a turn, the attacker must succeed on a charisma saving throw against your spell save DC, or the attack misses instead, as the creature recoils from your majesty. Once you assume this majestic presence, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. So that's pretty cool. It comes back on a short rest. So to begin with, it does say that when the creature hits you with an attack for the first time on a turn, so that means that you can't waste this feature. It's always something that's hit you, and then you have them roll against your save DC, and if they fail that save, then they just miss. So it's not like when they declare an attack and then that attack could have hit or miss, so you're not quite sure if you should have used that feature. So that's very powerful, where you can just force a miss possibly, but you no longer have the benefit where even if they succeed on the saving throw, that they have disadvantage on saving throws against spells on your next turn. So they removed that part of the feature, but they made it more reliable that this will turn a miss into a hit if they fail that saving throw. Moving on to the College of Lore, this is sort of the bread and butter bard from the 2014 Player's Handbook. So at level 3, again, we're starting with bonus proficiencies. This is completely unchanged from the 2014 Player's Handbook. You still gain proficiency with 3 skills of your choice. Moving on to Cutting Words at level 3 as well. In 2024, this says, when a creature that you can see within 60 feet of yourself makes a damage roll or succeeds on an ability check or an attack roll, you can take a reaction to expend 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration. Roll your Bardic Inspiration die and subtract the number rolled from the creature's roll, reducing the damage or potentially turning a success into a failure. So now you can actually know whether the attack or ability check was a success before using it. So this means that the Cutting Words is much less likely to be wasted. And also, creatures immune to charm or creatures that can't hear are no longer immune to this effect. So it's just much more reliable to use, and it now applies to many more creatures than it did previously. Then moving on to level 6, we have Magical Discoveries. So in 2014, this was Additional Magical Secrets. In 2024, it says you learn 2 spells of your choice. These spells can come from the Cleric, Druid, or Wizard spell list, or any combination thereof. A spell you choose must be a cantrip or a spell for which you have spell slots, as shown in the Bard features table. You always have the chosen spells prepared, and whenever you gain a Bard level, you can replace one of the spells you meet with another spell that meets those requirements. So much like Magical Secrets for the base Bard in 2024, you do have a smaller selection of spell lists to choose from, where it has to be the Cleric, Druid, or the Wizard, but those are of course all very powerful spell lists, so that's not quite that bad. And additionally, much like the Magical Secrets feature for the Bard in 2024, you have the ability to exchange those spells when you level up, so you can grab higher level spells from those classes. So this is basically just an extension of Magical Secrets, much like it was in 2014. It's just using the 2024 methodology for it. And again, the methodology for the 2024 Magical Secrets for the Bard is actually nuts, because it allows you to effectively replace the vast majority of your spell list as you level up past level 10 for the base class. Moving on to level 14, the capstone for College of Lore, we have Peerless Skill. In 2024, it says when you make an ability check or an attack roll and fail, you can expend 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration, roll the Bardic Inspiration die and add the number rolled to the d20, potentially turning a failure into a success. On a failure, the bardic inspiration isn't expended. So this now applies to attack rolls, and it only matters if you fail, which means it's the feature is less likely to be wasted, much like a lot of the other features that we've seen so far. So that's just a very positive change overall. The feature also can't be wasted because even if you do fail, you just keep that bardic inspiration anyway. So that's a very good efficiency as far as that goes. So moving on to the College of Valor, this is the martial subclass for the Bard. So this was overshadowed by the College of Swords pre-2024, but they made some pretty decent changes to it that make it a little more exciting. So we start off with combat inspiration at level 3. In 2024, this says a creature that has bardic inspiration die from you can use it for the following effects. Starting with defense, when the creature is hit by an attack roll, that creature can use its reaction to roll the bardic inspiration die, add that to their armor class, and potentially causing that attack to miss. And that only works against that attack. And then offense, immediately after the creature hits the target with an attack roll, you can roll the bardic inspiration die and add the number rolled to the attack's damage against that target. So defense is now only triggered on hit, much like we saw with like the lore bard and everything like that, making it less likely to be wasted on an attack that would have missed anyway. And then the damage now applies to damage from any attack roll and not just those made with a weapon. So this includes, spell attacks or anything else like that. Also at level 3, we have martial training for the College of Valor. So in 2024, they added a little bit of text here. So like in 2014, you do gain proficiency with martial weapons as well as medium armor and shields. In addition, you can use the simple or martial weapons as a spellcasting focus for spells from your Bard spell list. So it does allow you to use your weapon as a spellcasting focus, which is, convenient. But I think it's also interesting, and I just kind of noticed this as I'm reading it right now, that it does say from your Bard spell list. So this technically wouldn't include spells that you borrow from magical secrets. So if you've replaced a lot of your spells, after level 10 with the spells from the cleric, druid, or wizard spell list, they are Bard spells for you, but they don't say that they are added to your spell list, quote unquote. So, depending on what your DM thinks about that, they may say that you need a different spellcasting focus for druid and cleric and wizard spells or whatever. I don't know that that's the intention of this feature, but that is the way that it's written. I think I'd be much more lenient with that, as I think most of us are, with the way that components are kind of hand-waved in a lot of ways if they're not consumed or have a cost. Moving on to level 6, we have extra attack. So you can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn, much like every other extra attack feature. But in addition, in 2024, you can cast one of your cantrips that has the casting time of an action in place of one of those attacks. So this is a really great improvement that helps differentiate the College of Valor from the College of Swords. Spells like Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade are obvious standouts for purely martial-focused Valor bards. It also just pairs extremely well with 2 levels in Warlock for not only Pact of the Blade, but Agonizing Blast and Eldritch Blast, of course. This allows you to maintain sort of the single attribute dependency by being able to only focus on Charisma for your main stat. And you can cheat in more attacks by making an attack with your weapon and then casting Eldritch Blast, which has its own number of attacks that scales with your level. So if you're like a melee Valor bard, you might need to dance around the disadvantage within melee range unless you take a feat to cancel that out. Or if you're just playing like a bow Valor bard, then this isn't any problem for you. You just take a shot with your bow and then you cast Eldritch Blast and it's just all good to go. Although I think Pact of the Blade doesn't work with ranged weapons technically in 2024. So you have to figure it out some way, but it is still a very powerful combo to not only have your main attack but then take all of your Eldritch Blast attacks as well. So that's pretty cool. Finally, at level 14 for the College of Valor, the final capstone in this video, we have Battle Magic. After you cast a spell that has a casting time of an action, you can make 1 attack with a weapon as a bonus action. So this is effectively unchanged other than it doesn't require a Bard spell, which helps with multiclassing or spells from other sources that wouldn't be considered Bard spells. So again, yeah, if you're multi-class or if you have like spells from your species or other features that aren't part of your class spells technically, then that also works with this feature. So moving on to our overview here, what do I think is the most improved subclass? I probably have to give that to the College of Valor because the College of Valor was just so... It really was a kind of uninspiring, no pun intended, really compared to the College of Swords bard. Like, the College of Valor still had some things going for it, but it just didn't seem nearly as shiny in comparison to the College of Swords bard, that I think they've done a lot to really make it stand out on its own. And that whole attack and then Eldritch Blast, that's a very powerful thing you can do. Even if you don't do that, it's still very good. Just a much better looking subclass now than it was before. Moving on to the most nerfed, and I'm being very nitpicky here. I think all of the subclasses here are actually pretty good. But I guess I would give it to the College of Glamour just because of that one temporary hit points scaling thing, where in 2014 it was a flat number of temporary hit points, whereas now you have to expend the Bardic Inspiration and then roll it, and then it's double that number. But the average of that number is usually less than the number of temporary hit points that you would have gotten in 2014. So half the time this is going to be worse than the 2014 version. So, and then half the time it's technically better, but oh man, it's again, I'm being very nitpicky here because I just, it's like I feel like I kind of got to put something here if I feel that way. But College of Glamour is still very good. And then if I go on to the one that I think maybe has the most hype, or maybe I don't know if it's the one that I'm the most hyped for necessarily, but I think a lot of people are excited about the College of Dance. I think a lot of people were thinking that it's going to like replace the Monk or something like that. I don't think that's the case. You're not that good at unarmed strikes. And you do have to split your ability scores either between dexterity or charisma if you want to be either better at those unarmed strikes or just a better bard. But I do think that initiative feature is actually extremely powerful. And no matter how you play the College of Dance, once you hit level 6 and you get that feature, as long as you're banking one Bardic Inspiration die for the next encounter, you're going to be very valuable to your team, no matter, and just in addition to whatever else you're doing as a bard. So I think this is a very interesting subclass. I don't think it's necessarily the most powerful or the most versatile subclass, but it has a few good things going for it, and I think that's pretty cool. So let me know what you think down in those comments about the Bard subclasses in 2024. Which one is your favorite? Which changes are your favorite specifically? Have you had a chance to play one of these Bards, especially the College of Dance, and how did that go? Please let me know down in those comments. And again, while you're going down to those comments, please hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to this channel and you're either new or just continue coming back and watching it to the end like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button. But other than that, we're going to go to the Cleric next, I believe. So we'll have that to look forward to. Hope to see you in that video. Again, these are all available on a playlist. You can see that either in the description below or on my channel page as well. I appreciate all you guys' time, and I'll see you in the next one.